What is going on, everyone? This is Seth from Engage Podcast. Hope you're doing good. Hope your week's going good. Real quick, before we get into today's episode, I just have a few announcements. I always have to have announcements. First of all, if you're new to the podcast, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy it. You know, this is something that me and Pastor Anthony, we find so much joy in doing. It's like one of our like the highlights of our week. The second one is obviously church service, but we really we love doing this, and we love seeing the joy that this podcast brings to people. Plus, it allows us to meet so many cool people. But whenever you're listening to this podcast right now, hit subscribe. So whether this is on podcast or Apple Podcast, hit subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify, hit subscribe. If you're listening to this on Google Podcasts or YouTube, hit subscribe. That way, you get notified every time we come out with a new episode of Engage Podcast. It'll be right there for you on your phone. You won't even have to think twice about it. It'll be boom right there in the morning, right? The best part of waking up is Engage Podcast on your phone. It's not as catchy, but we'll make it work. Also, if you haven't come out yet, we only have a few weeks, I think, left of our outside services. 11 a.m. Here at Faith Presbyterian Church, we're still doing our outside services. And I tell you what, like they're just more and more and more enjoyable. I don't want them to end. You know, as much as I want to go back into the actual church building, I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of like, I'm hoping that the weather holds out as long as it possibly can so we can keep doing this. It's a lot of fun. So if you haven't come out yet, only a few more weeks for you to come check it out. It's a lot of fun. So 11 a.m., Faith Presbyterian Church, back parking lot. Be there. We'd love to see your face. We'd love to get to know you. Our guest today is such an amazing person. I was really worried we were not going to get him on the show, but his name is Bernstine. Now, if you don't know who Bernstine is, it's probably because you don't live in Western Pennsylvania, because he is a big name person here in Western PA. He's a state representative, and he's done so many great things, and he's a lot of politicians get a lot of heat. Some of it is deserved, but this individual, I tell you what, he is such a great person. And after today's episode, you're going to find out why I'm saying that. So give it up for our friend, Bernstine.
Back to our Leader2Leader podcast here at Faith Presbyterian Church. This is where we have different leaders and influencers come on in the show, and we discuss life and leadership and everything under the sun. Today we have a great honor. Seth and I have a great honor of having Mr. Bernstine, the state representative of the 10th District of Pennsylvania, here with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. Excited, and I know when I got the email, I was definitely excited to come in and chat with you, and love the stuff you're doing here. It was a great tour of the facility, that's first and foremost, so for people that don't go here, you got to come check it out. Really good things happening.
Cool. Hey, thanks so much. So if you are out there in the Hermitage area, we do meet, and we're not meeting inside the church, we're meeting outside, right? And we meet at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you guys have some big smiles on your face. Aaron, it's so thrilling to have you here. Why don't you do us a favor and tell us and the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so 36 years old. I'll start with the most important thing. Is been married for almost 8 years coming up. Have a little 5.5-year-old boy, and had the pleasure of meeting your son on the way in here, and it reminded me a lot of that. So I get to, they're fun. They're definitely fun at that age, and he'll be starting kindergarten this coming year at St. Killian's in Cranberry Township. But I'm a state representative of the 10th Legislative District. That includes Beaver, Butler, and Lawrence counties, all portions of those counties. And, my background really before I got into politics 3.5 years ago was strictly in the private sector and in business. And the thing that I decided to run for office was I thought that we needed advocacy and leadership from a different standpoint of people that have been involved in government forever. I'm a huge believer in term limits, that people ought not to be in the same elected position for a long period of time. And the person that was there for 10 years. Nice guy, did what he thought was best. But, I'm a super aggressive, type A, high energy guy. And that's really been my approach to what I've done. So we live in a 106-acre farm. If I started today and never stopped working on the farm for the next 50 years, I still wouldn't be close to being done or caught up, by the way.
You still would be cutting the grass.
It'd still be cutting the grass. So, a lot of fun on that, and it's a great place to raise a family. And, thankfully, my parents are going to be moving out next to us on our property, and excited to have them come out. So, really good things happening family-wise. And, we work hard every day to try to make people's lives a little bit better.
Very good. So you just brought up you were not always into politics. What were you doing before that?
Worked in the private sector. So I worked for a company called ADP. We did human capital management, everything from payroll to time and labor management, the clock in, clock out systems, to human resources, and worked really with companies on saying, okay, what is an area of need that we can make life better for your most important asset? And your most important asset, as you know, isn't books on the wall. It isn't shelving. It isn't equipment. It isn't land. It is the people that work in your organization. So really focusing on the areas, particularly in the areas of human resources, in which we could work with those employees to make sure that they were happy, healthy employees and would maintain their relationship and their employment in that company.
So you brought up you believe in term limits. And, when I watch TV and when we watch TV, we see that there are some of these politicians that's been around, forever. What is it? Why do you think what happens to a person if there's no time, if there's no limits for them working in the government?
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, and I rejected a lot of the perks that came with the job. So let me start with that. I didn't take a state car. I don't think that people ought to be paying for politicians' cars. The most important thing is I didn't take the pension, because I don't think that regular people ought to be paying for politicians' pensions for the rest of their life. I believe it's a job that you go to do, and then you go back into the real world and live with the laws and the decisions that you made. So the reason I'm such a big fan of term limits, and I understand the other side of this, by the way, the other side of people that don't believe that you shouldn't have term limits is, who are you to tell me who I can vote for and put in office? That's a perfectly viable point. What I can tell you is, I call it the Incumbency Protection Program, in which the system itself is set up to defend incumbency, meaning the people that are there in office. You can spend taxpayer money to do political things. They say they're not political, but trust me, they're political. Now, we've stopped that, and we don't allow that to happen in our office, but those things happen all the time. So it really creates an unfair advantage when you're talking about electing people. I think that you go in, you do the job, and then you leave, and you try to leave it a little bit better than you found it. Am I ever going to go to Harrisburg and fix everybody's problems? The answer is no. But how do we go and move things in the right direction to help people solve the issues that they're dealing with every day? Those kitchen table issues, I think, are what is most important.
What I want to know is, on a person level, a human level, what happens to somebody that, like you said, you start and you're full of vigor, enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
What happens? What's the danger of somebody who's now been elected 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road? What happens in the person?
The psychological piece, I think, is what you're talking about. Sure. So I think it's really twofold. Number one is, and this is the one that people think of most, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Okay? I mean, we talk about that all the time. And what I mean by that is the following. You walk into a place, they say, "Oh, hello, representative. It's great to meet you." They grab your bag. It's just a different world, right? Listen, I carry my own stuff. I'm just a country boy that is perfectly fine. I'm a little bit dressed up today because after this I'm going to a funeral, but usually I'm in my camo shorts and backwards baseball hat and a t-shirt, right? That's my standard operating procedure for dressing in the morning. But I think sometimes people get so consumed with that perceived power, not actual power, but perceived power.
So the person themselves.
Yeah, I think the individual themselves, they think they're more important than they are. Here's the facts. The facts are, I'm a representative of the 10th district. There's 203 of us across the state. I have 62,000 constituents, maybe a hair more, 62.5. No matter if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, the people of the 10th district are going to be just fine. And you can't take yourself. It's a serious job, okay? But to think that you're irreplaceable is it's not true. Every person has been replaced. The greatest presidents we've ever had, the greatest leaders we've ever had, have been replaced. And those nations, municipalities, states, etc., have gone on and done just fine. So, to me, I think that they get too absorbed in their own importance. That's the first thing. The second thing I think that happens is, and this is a little bit unique that a lot of people don't talk about, when you're in this position for an extended period of time, you lose the skills that you came from your original role. So if you're in it for 20 years and you used to be an accountant, use that as an example, you can't just go back and be an accountant because you haven't been an accountant for 20 years. If you used to be a surgeon, you can't just go back and be a surgeon. You haven't been a surgeon for 20 years. So, I think to me, once people are in there for 15 years or whatever it is, they're like, oh my gosh, I got to stay here because I don't have anywhere else to go. That's one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about. And I'm telling you, I've had one-on-one conversations with these folks that are like, well, listen, I used to be a really good insurance salesman and started a really good insurance business. Well, I don't have an insurance business anymore.
Like before I was a pastor, I was a really good basketball player. I was almost professional. Do you remember that, Seth? I'd go out and dunk on people.
No, we don't
I can
think
never
that
go back to that.
My memory is not as good as
Your memory.
It's not. We don't know if that happened. We don't know. So, no, listen, you're athletic, though. I bet you could play.
I could play.
You could play a little bit. You can play.
After this, we're going to go out and take you out 101.
Listen, I'm too chubby now, man. I'm getting too many chicken dinners.
I'm only challenging you because when I saw you walk in, you have cowboy boots on.
That's right.
You can't
That's
move
right.
as well.
I always got the cowboy boots on. I cleaned them before I came, though. So
very nice.
We're in good shape.
But that's a good point. I think that's one of those observations that you would only realize when you're in that position.
Yeah. And it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do after you've? I mean, you're a pastor. Let's say before you were an attorney. I just use that as an example. You decide that after 15 years you want to leave being a pastor. You can't just go be an attorney again. I mean, the whole world's changed, right? And what you're doing. So,
Well, clearly you have a lot of influences in your life. I'd like to hear some of your positive influences. Tell us who they are, why you chose them, and then also the qualities, one or two qualities from these folks that you think are important to implement in your life or the world.
yeah, one of the things I try to do, I'm going to talk in I'm going to give you a couple specifics, and then I'm going to talk in generalities, because I think one of my life philosophies is the things that I try to do. And so I'd say your first influences are your parents, right? And I look at my mom and my dad and the influence that they've had on me. And my mom is like beyond kind. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do to her. She's the most kind person ever. Drives me crazy sometimes because I'm like, why do you let people treat you like that? But, so that's one of the things I'm like, all right, no matter how mad I am, try to be kind, right? Mm-hmm. What will mom do on this thing? Dad, my dad has taught me a lot. He's a business person, and was first in his family to graduate from college, and went on and had a good, successful business career. So many of those business things that he taught me about relationships is important, and he really built it on relationships. And I think, I also look at coaches that I had. Mark Stanley was my basketball coach in Union, and the things he taught me when I hated him right? When he was no good and didn't know what he was talking about, and I was mad at him for this or mad at him for that, and those life skills that you have as you're moving on. But the biggest thing that I would say is, I think it's a little bit dangerous when people say, I want to be like that person or be so influenced by that person, because as the Bible teaches us, we're all fallible, right? We all fail and we all trip over ourselves and we all do things, and sometimes people can also put up a facade that looks really good. When you peel back the curtain, they're not good people, right? So one of the things that I try to do is I really try to, every time I meet somebody, every single time I meet somebody, I try to find one thing that I really like that they did and one thing that I don't want to do. I'm going to use you as an example, if I could.
Get ready to
Is that okay? Is that okay?
Get ready to edit this out.
So there we go. So I walked in, and your son was out there, and you said, "Hey," I forget his name. I'm sorry. What's
Carmen?
His name? Carmen. You said, "Hey, Carmen, can you show Aaron the new thing that you got?" Right. So it wasn't just like, "Oh, hey, say hi to Aaron," moving on. You had him engage with another adult and describe. I don't even know if you thought of it like this, okay? But this is how my mind works. Mm-hmm. You had him engage with another adult about something that he was proud of and specifically describe it, which does a couple things. It boosts his confidence. It makes him communicate more effectively. And it has him show that what he did mattered, right? I don't know that you ran that through your head, but like, I'm doing that today. Like, I'm going to the funeral today. After I go, I got a family thing I got to go to. I'll do that with Dirks today, right? So like, I take that, like, every conversation I have is intentional, and it drives my wife crazy sometimes because she's like, you analyze everything like but like, I'm doing that. I thought of that. So I'm like, all right, this is what I got to do. I got to find something he has, something he likes, right? And I'm going to be like, hey, go describe to them what it is.
That was a humbling story, and I appreciate that. That makes me feel
like, I don't even know that you thought of it when you did that, but I did. And so, like, keep doing it.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Very nice.
So I'm always like, whenever we interview or talk to people who have very intimidating jobs like the one that you have, I'm always curious to find out what made you want to be involved in government. What made you look at being a state representative and say, I want to do that? I
fell and hit my head really hard once, and then I woke up and I was here, guys. So no, in all seriousness, here's where it was. I was actually, we moved back to this area. I lived in Cranberry Township, and I moved back to the Lawrence County area, and I was going to run for local council in my small municipality. I live in New Beaver Borough, okay? When I tell you small, like...
Is that New Galilee?
Yeah.
I lived there.
New Galilee address.
I lived
right on 168.
I lived on 168.
There you go. Well, I won't tell you exactly where because I don't want to record it. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you exactly where.
Yeah.
We won't say it on this.
Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you where I was on 168 either. Not you, but you right. As the listener.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, so I went to the meeting. I was like, all right, I want to get involved in local. And I go there, and I'm like, oh, these guys are doing a great job. Like, I don't need to run for anything here. Like, these guys are doing great work. I just go, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm new to the area, whatever. They're like, what are you doing at this meeting? Like, nobody comes to these meetings, right? So you meet them, and I'm like, oh, these guys are great. I don't want to do that. So I start seeing some of the things. So I'm like, all right. I can go home, tell my wife, I'm like, I ain't running for anything there. Why would I do that, right? If somebody's doing a good job, don't do it. You don't run. You don't need to change it. So I go and I look, and I'm like, all right. State level, man, there's some really easy misses here that's going on. So I start looking up, and I'm giving you a long answer to a story, by the way. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
But I look it up, and I'm like, all right, okay, this guy is there. He's been there for like 8 years. He's well liked. Yeah, he's good. Fine. I start digging into some votes. I start digging into some of the things that were happening. I'm like, all right, not a fan. So I make some phone calls. They're like, you can't beat him. oh, by the way, you can't win the Republican nomination either because we already have the next person in line who's going to run. So don't even bother trying, right? Well, okay, I'm a competitor. Like, my soul, I'm a hardcore competitor. So I start looking at the person that's going to run. I'm like, they're not the real deal. I mean, you got to be honest and, like, forthright. Like, I am who I am. I tell people all the time. You like it, vote for it. You don't. I'll go do something else. And I don't say that in a cocky way. I mean, that's really how it should be. So I started looking at the woman that was going to run. I'm like, all right, I'm running. They're like, okay, you might be able to win this, but probably not. But there's no way you're going to win the general election. Through a primary, I was the underdog. The entire party supported my opponent in the primary. We won 75% of the vote. She won 16, and another person ran and won 9. I'm like, all right, this is interesting. We knocked on doors all day, every day. That's all I did. I quit my job, knock on doors. I cut my, like, heat expenses, my cable. We spent nothing. I mean, I don't want to say we're eating ramen noodles, but we weren't eating good, right?
This is all out of pocket.
All out of pocket. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to run. Well, I start knocking on doors for the general election right after the primary. And I'm going, and I'm feeling it. Like, you could just start feeling momentum. I'm calling Harrisburg. I'm like, you guys need to do polling here. I'm telling you, I can win this thing. They're like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm telling you, this thing's winnable. They do a poll. We're within striking distance because we did all the work on the ground. So we ended up getting some additional financial support, did mailers, and, I knocked on 15,000 doors myself. 15,000 doors.
Is that still... We had Chris Fry in here.
Yeah.
Great guy. Did a lot of knocking.
Yeah.
Is that still, like, the number one way to get this accomplished?
Yeah, so we helped actually get Chris elected. He's part of our group called Accountable Leadership PAC, where people have to agree to certain things, and they're good, strong, men and women that believe in good government and anti-corruption and those types of things. But so Chris is a very good friend of mine, and actually I was just with him yesterday. So we all get together. Our ALPAC group gets together about once a month, and we get together and have lunch. And he ordered like 2 meals, and I paid for it. After he found out I was paying for it, he ordered more. I'm like, hey, buddy, what's up with that? So,
smart moves.
Yeah, he pulled a little prank on me on that. He didn't think I know, but I know. So, and
did he have the other one to go? Like, was it
no, he ate them both. That boy can eat. Oh, that he can eat. He's
a big boy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was an athlete too. He could play. So, is knocking on doors. And your question, how do you do it? You got to go meet people face to face, and you have to have one-on-one interaction. And, I've always shared with people, nobody cares how much you know till they know how much you care. If you don't think I care about you as a person, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. What knowledge I have? And, to me, that's a very important piece of, and you have to be genuine about it. You genuinely care about people in this business. Because if you don't, you're not going to last real long.
Well, one of the things that helped me because I knew who you were, but one of the things that helped to really bring you down to a real level was when you helped the Mason family and the whole Marquis Law, because you didn't just do it through just signing documents. So you got personally involved, and I thought that was really, really, really cool. And it's not anything new. Getting personally involved in people's lives, that's what Jesus did. I mean, that's that's the oldest way to do it. And it's kind of sad that we're having to rediscover that. And people like you and Chris stand out because you guys did that. And it's like, well, shouldn't everyone be doing that?
Yeah, and I think it's hard, right? Because then you're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're vulnerable when you go in and you have those personal conversations. And listen, sometimes people tell you stuff you don't want to hear. Especially in this job, I mean, they tell you stuff that you don't want to hear, and that's not easy. And I'm a big believer in feedback. I'm a big believer in letting people know what your weaknesses are, or, understanding what those weaknesses are. And sometimes that means I'm willing to change them, and sometimes it means it's just who I am and I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And that's okay too, right? Mm-hmm. those are things that I think is leaders go out and communicate with other folks. What are your top 3 weaknesses? If you don't know your top 3 weaknesses right now, you need to write them down on a piece of paper and put them in your pocket and think about it.
What are yours?
I have them. So I don't. I'm near a campaign, so I don't want everybody exposed. No, I'm just teasing. Without a doubt, it's a lack of patience with people. To me, that's a huge issue. I have 5, but I'll give you a couple.
That's
of them.
fine.
So it's a lack of patience. So for example, if you can tell me something in 1 bullet point, I don't need a paragraph. I just don't need it. Is that you too, or are you the paragraph guy?
I'm not the paragraph guy.
Yeah, me either. So I'm a bullet point. So give me the bullet point and what's going on. The other thing, one of the other things that I really have to get better at is, and I've made significant improvements on this. People's first answer is usually not the full answer or the truth. It's not that they're intentionally lying, but sometimes they don't know what the real problem is, or digging down into what those issues are. So, it's kind of like if you ask your wife what's wrong, she goes, nothing. It's probably not nothing, right? But, you really have to try to dig down into that. And because I move so fast, and this goes on to another one, I move so fast that sometimes I miss out on those details. Now, here's part of the problem. I'm now in my job because I have a really good staff, able to move really fast, and my staff cleans up the details, right? Mm-hmm. Not good for development and growth for myself. Mm-hmm. So how do you change that? Well, I have a chief of staff that'll pull me in and tell me, you did this. As a result, here's the problem it caused for me.
Wow.
Right?
How valuable is that to have someone
He's amazing.
like that in your life?
His name's Nick Karen, and he's great. And by the way, we'll go at it. Never publicly. And publicly, this is Representative Bernstine's stance, and whatever. But there have been other times where somebody in Harrisburg's around, or like the person that works for operations for the House, and we're going at it, and they're like, you can't talk to him like that. I'm like, hold on, we're working it out. Like we're getting better here together.
This is behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors, yeah. And those are some things that I have to get better at. And if you don't have people that are willing to tell you the truth and push you to that, it's concerning. I'm fortunate to have people that will tell me if I'm out of line or not doing something right or whatever. And because in my job, a lot of people want to tell you what you want to hear. But I have a tight knit of people around me that know me very well and have known me for a long, long time that have no issue squaring me up. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is it always comfortable? No, it's never comfortable. Is it necessary for my personal growth? Absolutely.
Yeah, that is so important. This last Sunday, I'm preaching through James, and I brought up Ray Dalio's book, Principles, and in it he discusses people's main barrier for growth, and he talks about 2, your ego and your blind spots.
Yeah.
And allowing somebody to be around and giving them the green light to say, when the door's closed, right, you go ahead and give it to me.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me the things I did wrong or the things that I could have improved on. That doesn't mean you're always going to agree.
Right.
But to allow that person that freedom to do that, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, who are the people, and I challenge people out there to answer this question, who are the people that no matter what will tell you the absolute truth and not care if you walk away from them? And by the way, it can't just be your spouse. It can't just be your spouse, because sometimes they don't want to fight with you because they got to go lay down in bed, right? It has to be other people that will literally say, I don't care if we're not friends after this, but here's the truth. Right? It can't just be. Now, my spouse is one of them, but I'm telling. There are also times where, and she'd probably deny this, but she holds back. Listen, you just want to get in the car and go somewhere with your kid, and I'm not interested in you being mad at me, right? That happens. So it has to be somebody that can just has the freedom to walk out of your life, if that makes sense. I think it has to be those people.
Mm-hmm. I think it's incredibly important.
Having that, can I say one more thing about that?
Sure, yes.
Having that forward conversation of saying, Anthony, I want that. I need that from you. Mm-hmm. to make me better, and looking at them square in the eye is critically imperative to your success.
I completely agree. Now, I wouldn't, and I know you're not, you wouldn't, I know you agree with this, but we're limiting that power to a certain person or persons.
Yeah.
You're not, don't hear us saying that's important, therefore everyone in the world thinks they can do that. This is a trusted advisor, I would almost call them. It's a group of one or two people that, like you said, they know you, right?
Yeah, these are people I grew up with. These are people I knew before the stuff. And I tell you, like my team around me that we have our campaign calls on and talk about things that would never, there's 5 of us on the call. And those 5 can say whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. And by the way, if either of you two ever said a cross word about me, they'd be the first one to come jump, defend, and tell you how you're wrong. Okay. Yeah. But it's, I think it's those relationships that you have. You talked about Chris Fry. Like, I'm one of those guys with Chris Fry. I mean, I'm not going to give you specifics, but if I think Chris has made a wrong decision or did this, like, I have no problem going at it, right? That's okay. But then publicly, I'm all about Chris Fry. And by the way, in general, I am all about Chris Fry. Like, he does an amazing job in Newcastle.
That's cool, man. The Bible in Proverbs, it talks about those kinds of things. And there's a very cool passage in Proverbs 27:17. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so shall one man sharpen another. Yep. It's one of those things that we use about accountability, mentoring, all that stuff. Yeah. But what's funny is if you really sit and think about it, iron sharpening iron, that's sometimes, usually, a painful process. Oh. And so we use it like it's this glamorous thing. But in reality, when iron is being sharpened by other iron, it's a brutal process. And that's what it feels like sometimes when you're being confronted with something, right? But the end result is something beautiful.
Well, how good do you want to be? And that's, I'll flip it back to I'm a big sports guy, obviously. I'll flip it back to a sports thing. Joe Paterno said one time he was giving a speech, and he got a bunch of flack for it when he was talking to a bunch of alumni. And he goes, you know what, maybe the price to be a national champion is too high. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? You're here to win national championships. He goes, like, maybe the kids are giving up too much. Maybe they're giving up too much in school, not enough of their family, right? But what he was trying to say was, when you really dig into it, this is 30 years ago, right, is it's okay to not want to be number one. Don't then complain about not being number one. But if you don't want to put in all the sacrifice, the hard effort, and the work to be the absolute best, that's okay. And I think the thing that some people think is everybody needs to be the best. Well, that's not reality. Okay? People have different personality concepts. People have all those different types of things. I know tons of people that make, $45,000 as a family and are perfectly happy doing exactly what they're doing. They love life. They're great. Okay? They work 32 hours a week each, and they're good to go. I also know people that are absolutely miserable and hate their lives and make well over $1 million a year. Then I know the inverse of those, right? I think the point is understanding what you want, and then how do you reverse engineer to get to that level that you're comfortable and want.
That's good stuff, man. I want to turn the corner here, get off maybe on a little lighter note. What does Aaron do for fun? What do you do to unwind? What are your hobbies? You're out there, 168.
What'd you say, unwind?
Unwind, or don't you only wind up?
Listen, I'm wound up. But no, I think a couple things. Obviously, spending time with my family. We have a farm. A lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of fun that I get to do with that. Huge sports fan. So anytime I get to, I've been watching a lot of baseball. When I say watching, I mean it's on in the background, and I'm working on my computer. But so big time sports fan. My son loves sports, so we do a lot of that. Anything outside. I'm a hunter. I love going fishing. So I'm a little bit of a hillbilly at heart. And we have a lot of fun with some stuff out there. Ride quads, go jump dirt piles, stuff like that.
That's cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Did you play sports when you were younger?
I mean, not well.
Okay.
My gosh, I'm 5'6".
You referenced basketball at one point.
And you laugh because I'm like 5. He's laughing right now. You see that? So, yeah, I mean, listen, I could shoot it a little bit. Not well, but a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's it. Like, I mean, you're tall, but I think I could have crossed you over.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I might have to go
Bernstine.
back into training.
You might have to.
It's going to take me a couple years.
We're going to do another one of these next year, and we'll see what
I know,
happens.
but here's the thing. Like, our bodies don't recover like they used to
No,
when we
that
work
is
out.
true. That is very true.
I mean, the other day I was doing some stuff on the farm. I go in the next morning. I was supposed to be up. I'm like, I'm not moving. I can't move.
I had a severe ankle sprain earlier this summer, about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Severe, high ankle sprain.
Oh, those
And
are
I've had-
terrible.
My goodness. I mean, it still hurts right now, like
Yeah.
walking around like
I mean, if
that.
you were 17, you'd have been done. You'd been fine in like a week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because I'm 18 now, so. you
Yeah.
know,
Close enough.
close enough. Well, the gray hair. So, man.
You want to tell them how you gave yourself a high ankle sprain?
I do want to hear this.
Well, people always tell me I should give like a really cool made up story, but the reality is I was jump roping. Okay, so talk about being an old guy.
Yeah.
However, I will preface this with, do you remember that old school rope that you used to have in gym class? Or maybe if you didn't, it was like in the 50s hanging from the gym.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like that huge thick
Yeah.
rope.
Yeah.
I've got one of those, and I use that to jump rope. So what happened was you have to high step that.
Right.
And I've done this thing for like 15 years. And man, Aaron, I came down right on the rope.
And it went.
It ripped. And it ripped hard, and it was ugly. Ugly.
You might want to change jump ropes.
Everyone said I should retire the jump rope.
I think it's time for retirement of the jump rope.
That's what the going rumor is.
Or you just make a decision that you're going to beat the jump rope and get back after it.
I've taken it out once since then.
Just to make sure you could.
I did it 15 times, and I was very nervous. I
That's
really
okay.
was. I
You
had
got it done?
anxiety. I did it.
Good win.
And then I put it back. Thank
Good
you.
win.
So I don't know what's going to happen with it.
I think you should frame it, put it in your.
You think so?
In your garage.
It's just not. I feel like it's just not worth it to re-injure it. I mean, it was a freak accident, but for the pain it caused me and the amount of
Disturbance
yeah.
of life.
So
Hey,
we'll see.
A personal decision.
Yeah. So
So, as Aaron Bernstine, what inspires you? What feeds your passion? What gets you going?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll give you a story. A person sent me a campaign donation. We raised, it's not cheap to run for office. A couple $100,000 a cycle. Person sent me a campaign donation, and it was 2 quarters, 4 nickels, and 3 dimes for $1, and said, "Thank you for doing what you do. I believe in what you're doing." Something along those lines. This person doesn't have literally 2 nickels to rub together, right? And I recognized the name. Like, how do I know that name? How do I know that name? And we helped them with a lot of really important stuff that made their life better. And that was so inspiring to me. It meant way more than any $25,000 campaign donation or $10,000, right? That this person thought enough to do that. And that to this day inspires me. It really does. Because it's like, okay, you're having an impact. So I think your successes drive you, and your failures can drive you and inspire you. And listen, I've had plenty of both throughout life and throughout last 3.5 years in the Pennsylvania State Legislature. But I think that is a huge one. Looking at the results of the things that you get done, and seeing the impact that you're having on people is what inspires me from a political level, right? From a legislative level, from a family level. I'm not trying to be weird about it, but walk around on my farm and you look around, and we built our farm. It was not a farm, by the way. It was garbage. It was junk everywhere, and tires and batteries and the whole 9 yards that we got all cleaned up. And you look at the success that's happened and how we're able to continue to drive forward and continue to have success. And, those are the things that inspire me.
So if you had the opportunity to mentor someone that was going into the same field that you're in, what would you tell them? What would you teach them?
Be you. Be you. Don't worry about getting reelected. We don't worry about getting reelected. We don't care about the political consequences of things. I am what I am. If you like it, vote for it. If you don't, vote for somebody else. And I have friends that vote for other people than me. It's okay. But always tell people where you stand on an issue. Always tell people what you believe in. And if they want something else, that's okay. But I think so many times that people in politics try to ride the line, right? You ride that fence line and say, okay, well, to you it's one thing and to you it's another. And, you don't have to worry about remembering much if you don't lie. And if you are who you are, life's a whole lot easier. I tell you, it's a lot comforting. I see the agony and literally the agony on some of these other people in offices' faces when they have to face the music on stuff because they told one person one thing and one person another. I just don't have that. I don't have that. I have other stresses. I don't have that stress.
And you mentioned success, failure throughout this. How do you view failure? Can you give us a story?
Sure.
Of something that you set out to do that you failed at, and then what was the lessons that you learned from that?
Yeah, good question. It was a piece of legislation that dealt with municipal electric companies and trying to get something done that basically would have wiped them all out, and that was the goal of the thing. And didn't go about it the right way. Not because, and I want to say right way, I don't mean unethical or anything else. I just mean I didn't know the systems well enough, right? So I brought people in to negotiate with that were not trustworthy people. And then they were negotiating in bad faith on legislation and then went around my back and ruined the legislation. So ultimately, it ended up working out okay because of some other things that we were able to do. But, you're surrounded then with people that are not doing things ethically and honestly and openly. And, your lesson with that was there were other people in the House of Representatives that knew that, and they're from the Pennsylvania Municipal Electric Association and the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs. They know these guys. They know they're slime balls. They know they're not good to negotiate and work with. So, next time I was working on a piece of legislation, I literally said, I'm going to go find 5 ultra right-wing conservative members of the House, 5 ultra left-wing liberal, and then 10 in the middle. So I went and asked 20 people, what do you know about this group? Who should I talk to? Who should I not talk to? I mean, it took a lot of time. It slowed down the process, but it then made sure that I wasn't negotiating with people that were not good folks. So that was my lesson. And it was a hard lesson. I mean, I thought I had everything done. Everything was good to go. We're rocking and rolling. Nah.
No. How would you define leadership?
Wow, that's a big word, right? I mean, literally, massive amounts of libraries of books could be written with that. I think how you define leadership is really,
or what components?
what
a leader have?
Let me do the
qualities,
qualities. Let me do the components, because I think definition's a little, can mean different things to different people. But number one, genuine. If you're not genuine, you don't care about people, you can't lead people. That's a manager. If you need somebody to manage something, right, you manage materials. from getting one place to another. You don't manage people, you lead people. Vulnerability. If you're not willing to be vulnerable to the people that you lead, you're going to lose on that. Being willing to do the worst possible job of your entire team. If you're in charge of a whole plant and the sewage backs up, you ought to be the first one in there with a bucket.
So could we call that humility? So genuine, vulnerable, and humble?
Humility. Yeah. I think that's
not the humble, like, I'm so sad, look at me, I never smile. Right. But humble in the sense of, like,
willing to do anything.
Right. I'll go clean the toilets if I have to.
Right. And I have. I mean, I've been in significant leadership positions and different stuff, and I'm the legislator. It's quote unquote my office, right? My name's on the door. That's ridiculous. I mean, number one, it's the people's office. I don't pay for it out of my own money. It's taxpayer money that pays for it. Number two, we were doing a cleaning day that came in, and just in the first part of the morning after some of this COVID stuff, right, and scrubbing everything down. You get there early and you start early. Me, alone. And when other people come, you're already starting. You got to be willing to make those and I don't even say that they're sacrifices. I mean, why would you ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to go do? That just doesn't. People act like that's important. I don't even think that's an option.
It's just normal.
Yeah, that's just my normal behavior, and so I think those are things that really amount to good leaders. But you gotta care. There are people that are. I come from a sales background, especially in sales. The reason that if they're good in sales, a lot of times is because they're selfish.
If they're not good in sales.
If they're good in sales, a lot of salespeople are there because I don't mean selfish in a bad way, right? But I mean selfish in this is my time, don't bother me, I'm on the phone making sales calls, get away from me, right? That is what drives success in that field. I had tons of people that work for me that are like that. I don't mean they're selfish personally in their personal lives, but with that type of thing. As a leader, it's the opposite of those things. So just because somebody's good in one role does not necessarily mean they're good in another role. I mean, the book Good to Great, I don't know if you've read it. Have you read it?
Times.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's read Good to Great, right? If you haven't read it out there, by the way, go read Good to Great. So with Good to Great, it talks about getting the right people on the bus and then find a place for them. Not figuring out, and I'm summarizing, right? But not figuring out, okay, here's what I need. I'm going to go find a person for this position. Get right people and then put them where they can be most effective. And I think that's a good part of leadership too.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So in your opinion, this is a big one. Do you think leadership is something that comes that a person is born with, or do you think leadership is something that you can attain and learn?
Yeah, both. I mean, I can share with you. Whenever I got my first sales team, I was terrible. I was atrocious. I fired up some of them, and a bunch of them quit, and I'm no good, and I don't know what to do, and right. But do you want to get good at something? And I challenge people, and this isn't about leadership, what I'm going to say, but think about this for a second. People work 8 to 5, right? Is that about right? Some use that. You go home, and let's say you spent 3 hours a day on one topic. Just pick any topic. It could be, I don't know, nuclear submarines or something like that. I'm pulling out my calculator here real quick.
I'm glad you're pulling that out, because if this was going into like a mathematical equation, I'm not your guy.
It was.
Okay.
So that's, if you spend 3 hours a day, every day, okay, that's 1,095 hours. And by the way, that means you got a lot of weekends off because you're only spending 3 hours. Like, you can spend 3 hours if you want. It's hard. 1,095 hours, right? That means, and then if you attributed that to like a 40-hour work week, you've spent just studying something over 27 straight weeks of full work day, right? Work through that math on that. You're going to be an expert in a year. You're going to figure it out. and know a whole lot about that topic.
Sure.
So, the question is, what do you want to be good at? Mm-hmm. Do you care enough to be good at something like that? Mm. And are you willing to do so?
And it's easier now than ever to find out, to study those things.
Your level of information. I mean, I'm looking straight ahead for people that haven't been in here. There's a bunch of books in front of me, right? You can find every single thing and every word right on that computer that's sitting there.
Right.
You have everything you need at your fingertips. Everything that you need right there at your fingertips, on your phone, on your iPad, on your tab, whatever you want. The fact of you not knowing something is because you didn't take the time to know something.
Right. That's true.
And that's personal accountability. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some things that I just don't care to know. My wife's an engineer, nuclear engineer. I'm not real interested in it. I don't care. Right? When it comes to math stuff and formulas, like I don't even know how to work the Excel stuff. I don't need to. Mm-hmm. If I have an issue, I know she can do it way faster than me, and I'm like, hey, can you just fix this? It takes her 3 seconds. Even if I spent all that time, it would still take me 10 seconds, right? Because she's been doing it for that long. And I go back to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant used to say, here's what I used to do. I used to do 3 workouts a day. He goes, I get up really early, I do that, you go rest. Up, wake up again, then go back at night, right? 3 workouts a day. He goes, by the time anybody even thought about trying to catch up to be as good as me, it's too late. It's over. They don't got a chance. Because they're never going to put in those hours that I put in. Mm. And by the way, now I'm still doing 3 workouts a day. So you're just never going to get there. Like, what are you willing to do to put yourself in a position to be successful? And what does, back to my original point, what does success mean for you? Some people, that means I want to work really hard and never work a day after 40 years old. Fine, you can do that. Other people are like, I'm cool working the rest of my life, but I don't want to kill myself. Mm-hmm. Like, when I go home, I don't want my phone ringing. All those things are okay too. What do you want? And then how do you reverse engineer to get there?
That's good stuff. So 2 kind of final questions here, being mindful of our time. The first one is, if you could get on a rocket ship and head 10 or 20 years down the road, what's Aaron Bernstine doing?
Hopefully alive. I work hard. Put it this way. I don't think I'm in politics. Probably running my farm and expanding that farm into some other things, and probably some other types of businesses. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, what I'm definitely doing is making sure I put a lot of work in early, put a lot of money away in retirement accounts and those kinds of things, so I could make sure that as my son gets older, we have other kids or whatever get older, that I'm able to be there and see that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not willing to give that up anymore. I just won't. I've driven back and forth to Harrisburg in a day a couple times to see him at some whatever. So, to me, that's important.
Okay. Now let's do the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we're able to get into a time machine and you go back in time and you run into your old self, maybe 10 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
Tell me the advice you give you.
Every interaction matters. Every interaction matters. I didn't get that even early in my business career. Even if you went back 12 years, 13, every single interaction that you have with a person matters. I'm going to leave here and you're going to go tell 10 people about me. What are you going to say? Then what are they going to say? They're going to see me online or on TV or whatever. What are they going to say about that when they're sitting there with hey, that guy's a good guy. Hey, he does things right. He works hard. He cares about his community, right? Whatever. Or is it he walks in here and was rude to my son when he tried to show him his toy, right? So I think that is imperative. Now, once again, you got to be genuine in who you are, but you're really insecure in your teens and in your early 20s, especially when you're going into the business world, because you think you got to be the big, bad, tough guy, and you don't. You can always be a little kinder.
I think that's a good way to wrap up our show.
Yeah.
And I want to say, I know I speak for Seth, and I'm sure our audience after they listen to this, it has been a real pleasure having you on. I know you're a super busy guy, so we appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you have offered a lot of insight and wisdom and leadership in what you do. I wish you the very best. And this is Anthony Claditis here at Faith Presbyterian Church signing off for another Leader2Leader podcast. And we look forward to connecting with you next week.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. And it's been a great pleasure to spend some quality time with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.